Okay, we're live. Cool. So everybody, welcome to Living with the Dursleys, a Trans Visibility Day discussion for social distancing times. Basically, what we're going to do today is have just kind of a nice conversation with each other and with you through the comments about dealing with some of the less than desirable living situations that we've probably all found ourselves in at one time or another, especially now while we're all stuck at home. So I wanted to especially start just by kind of mentioning to everyone, viewing is open to everyone on the stream, but I want to keep this as kind of a conversation by and for trans folks. So just not necessarily a place for anybody who identifies as cis to take over the comments, ask a bunch of questions, that kind of thing. And then I also wanted to remind folks that, yes, this is the HPA community, which is a safe space, but we are also streaming on the internet, which is open to the whole world. So keep that in mind when you're commenting. I want everybody to be nice and safe while we do this. So jumping in, I want to do some introductions. I guess since I'm already talking, I'll go first. I didn't really plan an order. I won't throw any of you guys into it though. My name is Ray. I go by, I use they, them pronouns. Let's see, what do I even want to share about myself? I'm a nurse for kids and a teacher for adults. I guess I'm here because I'm a HPA volunteer. I am usually a kind of a behind the scenes person. So I work with events. I do a lot of coordination. So this is not something I usually do being on camera. And then in my professional life, I've basically spent the past 5-ish years pushing trans inclusive healthcare education into the nursing program that I work for. So that's my whole spiel. AJ, would you like to go next?
Sure. I'm AJ. My pronouns are they, them. As I went excessive and put them in my name, it's fine. I am also a volunteer for the HPA. I work with campaigns, and more important today, I guess, is I am the operations director of Camp Lilac, which is a summer camp for trans and gender diverse youth ages 12 through 17. And then we also have a staff and training program. And we just launched our fundraiser today. That we're going into year 4 unless we push it, but I guess it'll still be year 4, even if it's digital year 4. And we are aiming to fundraise because we have a lot of low income folks in our camp. And so we're aiming to make sure that there are no barriers for anybody who wants to come to camp. We bring folks from all over the country, and I don't know how much it's appropriate to share, but yeah, I do that a lot. And the fundraiser is at bit.ly/lilac2020 if anyone's interested.
Very good. Cool.
Oh yeah, also, sorry.
Oh, no.
I'm sorry, I also have ADHD.
The mood.
Anyway, I also don't have a ton of experience doing this kind of thing. I have done programming mostly at LeakyCon. Yeah.
Exciting. Some of us anyways, are new to this. Ames,
you're doing great so far.
Here we go.
This has been
Ames,
great.
You are not new to this because you have experience from this afternoon. You did a great program.
I do.
Awesome.
I was doing this earlier. I was like, yeah, I can do 2 things in one day. That's like so much in this day and age right now. I feel like, this is socializing, which honestly feels very HPA in general. But I'm Ames. I use they and she pronouns. I am an HPA volunteer. I'm the resources editor. And a variety of other things that need to happen. Earlier today, I was talking with my partner and I was like, so I have to do an introduction for myself. And it's like, who am I? What do I do this quarantine / time in my life? I work for nonprofits and I write. And that's where I'm sticking at with who and what I am right now. Thanks for your patience. I'm excited to be here.
Perfect. Jack, take it away.
Hi, I'm Jack. My pronouns are he, him. And I used to be an employee at the HPA. I was the spokesperson and communications director, aka the director of Wizard Muggle Relations. Presently, I am a writer and internet creator, just sort of, freelance gig economy, millennial BS kind of doer. Also, my computer has ever since this quarantine happened, I think because I'm doing more and more of these video calls, my graphics card is not working. So I'm going to be freezing a lot probably, but hopefully my audio will still be going well. But anyway, yeah, I do a lot of different media creation and various things like that. Most of it surrounding transgender advocacy and education. Although at the moment, my main gig is actually writing and editing a daily news podcast called the Coronavirus Morning Report. So yeah, that's my life at the moment. But I do actually recommend it if you are someone who is, as I recommend, trying to limit how much you are paying attention to the news or on social media that is not uplifting for you, but you still want to stay informed. It's a quick 15-minute podcast that's up every morning with the top news stories you need to know to stay informed. So you could listen to that if you want. But more pertinent to this discussion, I also wrote a book, which I do actually. Okay. I was like, oh no, I didn't prepare a copy. Yes, I have a copy of my book. It is called Sorted. It is a memoir and educational guide. And yes, the name is a Harry Potter joke, among other things. So if you're here because you love the Harry Potter Alliance and you love Harry Potter, you will enjoy it probably. And also, if you have not read it before and you would like a copy, Camp Lilac's fundraiser is doing a drawing. If you donate to the fundraiser within the next 48 hours, I think, AJ will correct me, then you'll be entered to possibly win a signed copy. So you should check out the bit.ly, if we'll put it in the chat again, the bit.ly for the Camp Lilac fundraiser. And yeah, I'm excited to be here at Small Things Con. Every time I see information about Small Things Con online, I keep singing all the small things in my head, which is just an added bonus, really.
That's perfect. I love that. I'm not going to start singing it like I just almost did, though. So that's fantastic. Cool. So I guess we'll kind of jump in. So as you all know, this is probably going to be a little bit of a deep conversation, but we're going to try and keep it fairly light, pretty friendly. And we would be really excited if people in the comments would kind of interact and let us know your experiences, because we're just 4 people. And, we really don't represent even most categories. So we want to hear from you guys too. So I guess just in general, everyone on camera, let's start there. If anybody wants to jump in and start talking, what are kind of some of your thoughts surrounded just based on, living with the Dursleys and what that might be like kind of as we're going through this?
I could start, I guess.
Thanks, AJ.
Yeah, I was very fortunate growing up, in that I had a really welcoming family, but that has, it has these, a lot of pitfalls in that they think they know better than I do when you're when you're a kid and you know yourself, and then you have these people who are telling you that they know you better, and that just that's gonna happen inevitably. And so it takes so much, I think, to for instance, my sister is also trans, and she could have come out as trans at age 8, but we were all so overwhelmingly supportive of her desire to wear dresses and use she, her pronouns that we overwhelmed her with that. And then she didn't come out until years later, and it caused a lot of stress because people can think that they know what's best for you, and they think they know what they're doing, and they think they're helping, and they have the best intentions, and it can still suck. And I know that obviously this conversation is for people for whom it sucks way more than maybe it sucked for me growing up. But I know that one of the things that was really hard for me was looking into the world and seeing supportive families being applauded and unsupportive families, like, and people from unsupportive families getting support. And I always felt like it was like not my place to be upset about what was going on in my life. And so I just wanted, I guess, to like talk a little bit about, you know, not everything, it's not black and white, you know, just like gender, there's this whole like continuum. It's a cloud of, you know, good intentions, bad intentions, all of those equal whatever experiences. And now I'm an adult and I'm dealing with all of my own, like, everything. And it's, you know, again, I am at my grandparents' house because I'm fortunate to have this space. But it, you know, like, I just, for instance, I've been on testosterone for almost 3 years and I just got my period because I have Ohio insurance because that's where I live. And they stopped covering my testosterone. And, you know, no matter how supportive your family is, no matter how good everyone is trying to be around you, it, like, things like this can still suck. Like, I've had one of the worst weeks of my life because of that. And it, you know, yeah, it's, if you're out there with a family that wants to support you and all that, but still having trouble, I see you.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for sharing all of that, AJ. And I think a like important thing to remember is because so many of us, and I know so many people who are watching, because I know HPA type of folks, like so many of us are very generous and very good at like acknowledging our places of privilege and being grateful for different things. But I think it's so important to remember that you can still be going through struggles, even if like your struggle like isn't as extreme as someone else's. Like, there's no need to compare. Like, we're all going through hard times. And also remembering that someone who might look like they, you know, have all of these great affordances for them might still be struggling with something behind the scenes. And I think that's a big thing that a lot of trans people are going through right now is challenges like getting prescriptions, like having had surgery dates canceled, not being able to go see their therapist or their support group in person, like all these kinds of things where, you know, you see someone who, like, maybe they are financially stable, maybe they're lucky enough to not have to go back to an unsupportive home, but they still have a lot of different challenges that they're going through right now. So I think it's really great for us to be able to share some of those, and thanks to the HPA for creating this space for people to kind of at least talk about it, because it's going to be hard to find real solutions, but talking about it and hearing other people's stories sure does help.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think it's really important to kind of keep that perspective that even if we're not all in the exact same position at the exact same time, we have a lot of similar experiences, just by default of kind of the way that we've had to grow up and find ourselves and kind of explore the world. So I'm excited that you felt comfortable sharing that, AJ. That was very good. Yeah, I'll chat a little bit. I don't have as much on it as AJ does. I am pretty fortunate. I live in a very supportive household. My partner is super supportive, and it's just the two of us who live here. But my family is, well, maybe they would be. I don't know. I haven't told them. So, and I can't imagine that they necessarily would be. There's always some nice comments made in my family about the trans community, so I haven't taken that step. And that kind of is one of the reasons that I wanted to get this stream going, is just to kind of acknowledge that, like, yes, I'm an adult, so I don't have to live in that situation right now while I'm stuck at home. But there are so many people who either are kids and have no other option, or have financial dependency on people that they live with, or, you know, whatever the situation is. And they're stuck at home with people who, you know, they're kind of like the Dursleys. They aren't super sportive. They're like just not particularly open to respecting people's gender identities or sexualities or really anything going on. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at with it. Thoughts from the others of you?
Yeah, I feel really similarly. Like I live on my own with a partner, 4 cats. You know, the queer dream. Um, but I think something too, like I live in Indiana where like there aren't many like protections for queer and specifically trans people. So like right now I'm looking for a job. And there's always the thought of like, I know I just need money and I can, I've had plenty of jobs, writing, customer service, but it's like, do I want to be in a space where I don't feel like I can be like who I am? And like having been in good work environments, like going back to that is harder. But I think this, global pandemic is, shifting to like what jobs I'll probably be, taking in the near future just to make sure I can pay my bills and like exist as a human in this world. And I think definitely like I'll have a smaller amount of jobs in the near future that I'll be able to get, and I'll have to be less, I'll just have to be like, how comfortable do I need to be at a place 40 hours a week? And I think that is something that like every like person of marginalized identities goes through. And I think this pandemic is really gonna like up that for a lot of people, whether or not like you just have a part-time job or like you have a career or somewhere in between that, which is where I am in life.
And it's really tough watching that, like how that evolves. You keep thinking that you're going to be out of that stage when I'm about to graduate college and thinking, oh, well, when I'm done in school, I won't have to think about this. I won't have to worry about this anymore. But, it just changes, and it's so, and all of it is, expanding and becoming even tougher to deal with during the pandemic. But like looking at, I don't want to say silver lining because this is a global pandemic and people are dying, but like, I think that, for instance, like having these digital spaces a little bit, like you have this 40 hours a week, or I have my 5 classes and all that. And so you have to deal with all of those things, but you can be sitting at home in your Discord with all of your, Camp Lilac friends or with all of your HPA friends, and you have folks who couldn't have that support otherwise, like I might just be an overly optimistic human being, but I think that it's a lot harder. You have to be a lot less selective in finding your school, your employment, paying your bills, all of these things, but we also have these awesome communities sprouting up from it.
Yeah, I thought it was really fun. It was like, I think like the first day that most people who are able to work from home or sort of got work from home orders was one of my friends, a LeakyCon employee, Abby. It was her birthday, and she had her boyfriend put together like a virtual birthday party, and so there were a bunch of us from all over the nation who tuned in, and it was like, she lives in North Carolina. I wouldn't have been celebrating her birthday otherwise. There was only like one other person on the call who even lived near her. And so we got to have this big global celebration instead. And yeah, maybe it's not what she envisioned having, maybe she had booked a venue or something. I don't know, had some big extravagant like birthday plans that didn't get to happen. And that really sucks. But like she did get to have this other thing that was kind of beautiful. So yeah, those kinds of things are really cool. I do want to go back a little bit to what Ames was saying and AJ about the just sort of how this is really throwing a wrench into things, job wise for sure for a lot of people. But I think just so many aspects of life and that sense of security, like AJ, you were kind of saying you felt like when you graduated college, like things would be more simple, or like you would feel like you were on more sure footing. And I felt like that a lot too. Like my particular age group, like we graduated into the recession, and now in our early 30s, we're all like, we're finally feeling like we got, we're a little bit more stable. We're getting things together. And then this happens. And like, this is going to take a few years on a global scale for things to like level out again. And on individual scales, maybe longer, maybe shorter for some people. And so it's just like, oh, like the world stops coming and doesn't stop coming. Listen, there's a lot of wisdom in that song. You just got to throw out some psalms every now and then from it. But no, yeah, that's something, just sort of the larger impacts of things that I can't get my head around. Like I've had a lot of the same thoughts as you, Ames, of just like, oh well, I had thought that I was going to do this, or I was, I had these plans, but now, even just on a small scale of like, oh well, I was saving for this thing, but now those savings are going to have to go to like help my mom and brother who have both been laid off, and all those kinds of ripple effects that are everyone's experiencing. And it's weird because I think like you've got people who were in a more privileged situation who are having to like face this uncertainty for the first time ever or in a while, but then you've got people who like were already struggling, who are already on thin ice, and now it's even harder. And we're seeing a lot of those inequalities come to light. But also, if we want to do a more optimistic ish take, it's like, well, also a lot of people are experiencing these things for the first time, which are then making them realize and like open their eyes to what it's been like for everyone else and how they can maybe step up and help and change their perspectives in the future. Like I saw Michael in the chat talking about Fight for 15 and universal basic income, and the HPA has worked with Fight for 15 in the past. Definitely big supporters of living wages, and I don't know about UBI, but I'm in support of UBI. And yeah, I think there's going to be way more people getting behind things like that and behind universal healthcare and all kinds of things now.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think it is really easy to get kind of bogged down by thinking about how awful, everything truly is right now. Because I mean, if you open your social media apps or if you turn on the news or anything, you're literally just bombarded by news, and it's terrible news. But I think it's important for people, just as kind of a survival skill, to look for those little wins that we can take from this, just the little bits, like AJ said of, a silver lining, and just the amount of connection coming out of this for people, I think is really, truly beautiful. Like you mentioned, you got to celebrate your friend's birthday that you otherwise wouldn't have. And I think that's a really good kind of survival skill that can be recommended to this community or any other communities that are kind of feeling a little bit lost, a little bit invisible right now, is just, try and find some type of maybe online community, because, if you're not getting it in your household, you can probably find a group of people like you on the internet.
I promised I wouldn't do a ton of self promo or camp promo in here, but I have to say we have a Discord for queer or for trans and gender diverse people for Camp Lilac. I can drop the link. It's literally for this. Like, we have people coming in there who are not out in any other space in their lives, where like this was my real silver lining, actually, was getting to create this spaces, opening up spaces for people who, like, I was emailing with someone who prior to this point literally could not say their name out loud, could not anything like that. And now that we made this space, they have a space where they can go say their name. And I just that's really important to me. And if you're looking for that, it's not hypothetical, it's here. And we have one, and I know we aren't the only one.
You're definitely not the only one, AJ. Fun fact, the HPA is, we also have a Discord channel. So we recently started our Discord channel and made a sub channel. I don't know what they're called. Kids.
So it's a Discord server. You made a channel.
Thanks, AJ.
You're welcome. I'm a kid.
Keep me young. So we recently had that going, and we've decided, kind of just in light of Trans Visibility Day and everybody kind of stuck in less than great situations, we wanted to start our own little channel just specific to kind of trans people, sticking up for other trans people and giving each other a place to go and be together, and just feel visible and accepted and loved for being ourselves. So that's great.
Yeah, I've been trying to think back to. Oh, I hear an echo, and it might be me. Does anyone else hear an echo?
I do not hear an echo.
Okay, it's gone. Anyways, no, I've been thinking back to like when I wasn't out yet, and if this had happened then, and like you know, what I would have done and what would have helped me. And it was really like the online communities I was a part of that were sort of my lifeline at the time, because I wasn't out to the people that I was living with or really anyone in my life. I was maybe like at a support group I went to. And so not being able to go to that in-person support group where it was like the one place I could be myself would have been really hard. But I also know that like online communities where even there I wasn't necessarily out were still super, super helpful for me. So I would also say, like, as you're looking for places that can maybe be your outlet, that can be you know, your space to go to during this time, if you're not out and you're feeling like maybe I'm not trans enough or I'm not queer enough or whatever to like be a part of this space, like that's okay. Like you don't feel pressured to, you know, out yourself to gain entry to some place. Just it's still okay, and you'll still get something out of it even if you're not ready for that yet.
That's perfect. Yeah. So let's see. Where do we want to take this, friends?
While we're on resources, do we want to talk a little bit about some more tangible places people can go to find some help?
Yeah. Oh, actually, this takes me back to what Jack was just saying about how just finding those online trans communities were kind of a lifesaver before he was out. I spent the better part of the last few days looking on the internet trying to find resources, just in general for this program, to talk about where people could go, what they could do, what their options were. And the lack of resources is, I mean, not surprising because we've all been on the internet, but it's upsetting to see the lack of resources. And the fact that I found the most stuff on Reddit is just, I think it just says so much about what this community can do for each other and what, you know, how we kind of stand up for each other. But yeah, we did find a couple of resources that we kind of wanted to tell you guys about. Does anybody want to talk about those?
Well, I did see one in the chat real quick, which was Trevor Space, which I think is a project of the Trevor Project. And in addition to plugging the Trevor Project, which is an amazing hotline service if you need someone to talk to, if you go to the Trevor Project's website or their social media, they've got a whole bunch of other initiatives. And I'm pretty sure on their social media, they're like constantly plugging other projects and communities that people are putting together, especially at this time. So, because Ray is right, it can be really hard to uncover and sift through and like find these spaces. But particularly as this lockdown in a lot of places in the pandemic goes on and more of our world becomes virtual, I'm seeing a lot of cool projects pop up. And in our weird algorithmic world, it's like you've got to know the right account to follow who will recommend all these ones. So I really recommend following the Trevor Project and following GLAAD and, of course, following the HPA, because all of those organizations are constantly sharing what they find. So they'll do a little of the work for you, and you can just follow them and see what they recommend.
Absolutely. I think that's perfect. Yeah, cool. So, AJ, do you want to talk about the resource that you found earlier?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I full disclosure, I did not read it thoroughly because I have ADHD and I didn't have time for that.
It's okay. I've read it before.
I scanned it. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen similar stuff from them before, and I know it's from the National Center for Transgender Equality. I really like everything I've seen come out of their everything, but this one is it's titled "What Trans People Need to Know," and it's got some suggestions for like things to be aware of, and just like normal. So they have this create a plan of action header that what I really liked about this is that it's general suggestions, but it is specifically like written by people who are being aware of like from a trans lens, basically. So it has an emergency home quarantine kit that acknowledges like binders and stuff like that. And it has towards the bottom some important resources. They have housing, mental health. There's a ton of crisis hotlines, social support hotlines. Oh, hey, they actually mentioned my health center, Fenway Health. They have a lot of stuff on their website too, but I forgot to link that. There's resources for families. There's also a huge list, which this was what I thought was going to be really helpful, was the medical providers and latest health information. It's under important resources, number 1. And I have not like thoroughly gone through this list, but I know that when I was working with Fenway Health, which is, if it's not on this list, it should be, they were really, really helpful in working with me on how to get my trans healthcare stuff adapted to this distance everything. And so there's a ton of really good and helpful information in here.
Yeah, I thought that would be a really good, a good kind of starting point, AJ. I really like that you found that for us. One of the things that I wanted to make sure that we kind of just touched on a little bit, and this is, I mean, this is completely selfish that I want to talk about this, is just in general kind of how this entire global health crisis is particularly affecting trans healthcare and access to, you know, affirming care, or just straight up healthcare in general, not even affirming care. Because, you know, as so many trans people just have health disparities to begin with. And that's one of the things that, like, I personally, that's my like big mission in life, is to help minimize those as much as possible. So seeing how much this is affecting the trans community is pretty upsetting. And I know that that's something that I know a lot of the rest of you kind of care about as well.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, AJ.
Oh, I was just say, actually, that was one of the things that I had been thinking about, was like, something that I've seen a lot is folks who, like, even if they technically could, like, one of the issues I ran into getting my testosterone is that, like, technically there are people that you could go to, but it would involve dead naming and being like being misgendered and being like dealing with a lot of unnecessary things, because even if you technically can find these providers, even if you aren't looking specifically for gender affirmative care, it can be so hard. Like, it's an uphill battle if your provider isn't trans competent.
Yeah, I think there's, when it comes to accessing healthcare for trans people, even like it's another example of just sort of like having been on this delicate sort of balance already, and not until there are extra barriers put in place are you maybe confronted with how delicate that was before. You know, primary care physicians are going through a really hard time right now, because all their appointments are being canceled. So like practices are on the verge of being shut down because they can't see patients. And I'm not positive for estrogen and the combination of drugs on that side of things. But as far as testosterone goes, it is a controlled substance. So at least in the state of New York, it's not just that you get an automatic refill. It's that you have to, your primary care physician has to like physically request a refill every time. So there's this extra step. And if primary care physicians aren't being able to go to work, or if they're super overwhelmed by how much demand, like there's like, that's one step that's not available anymore. If you encounter any type of problem, because there's always problems, then it's like, there's so much more, there's so many fewer people who can like help you out right now. And so that's like one of the many reasons why people are having trouble accessing things. Or for example, I was talking to my pharmacist and I was like, oh, I saw that you're doing free delivery right now so that we don't leave our houses. And they were like, yeah, but yours is a controlled substance, so we can't deliver it. I was like, okay, cool. Or like, I'm having trouble getting needles and syringes right now. And usually my backup, which I would recommend to people if you're able to, if there's this in your community, but in Manhattan, we have a needle exchange program. And you can go and just get as many free needles and syringes as you need. They don't ask you why you need them. You can just get them. But I can't go to Manhattan anymore because we're on lockdown. So like, that's not available to me. It's like all of these backups become unavailable.
And then when you have other, like, maybe other conditions, other things that you need, like, for instance, I was going through all of that with my testosterone and also my ADHD medication. And so then you wind up going around in circles on phone calls and trying to get to people. And you just like, I spent all of the last week on the phone with 3 different people, and like, I lost track of who was doing what and what was where and all of these things. And the more that's just the 2 things. When you have more things and when you have more things counting against you, like if you don't have the privileges that I have, if you're a person of color, if you have multiple disabilities, if you have other kinds of disabilities, like all of those factors, it all just like piles and it gets so hard. And I know that that's part of what Ray is working to fix.
Yeah.
Well, hoping for the best. Yeah, that's a huge part of it. And especially right now, since we're supposed to stay at home, there are prescriptions that you have to physically get handed to you to take in physically to a pharmacy. You can't even have them send them electronically. And that, obviously doesn't encompass testosterone or estrogen or any of the other HRT medications. But there are so many medications that people are on that, are inaccessible right now because maybe that person could be immunocompromised for whatever reason, or is taking care of somebody that's immunocompromised, or any of these things can play into it. And that person can't go and get on public transportation to then go to their physician's office to get a piece of paper that says they can have the medication that they need to stay alive, to then go to a pharmacy and get it filled. All the while, potentially not having their health insurance because they've lost their job, or maybe they never had health insurance to begin with. And all of the other things that just stack against you, the more and more, the further this goes, the odds get kind of stacked against people. And that makes it incredibly difficult to even take the step of wanting to take care of yourself and get the medication. I think probably most people in here know what the mental health situation is for a lot of trans people. It's pretty difficult, and that's one more thing stacked against people, because then they don't have the resources to go and even fight to get their medication like you have, AJ. Jack, what were you going to say?
Oh, just so many things here, because you're just all saying such good things, and it's making me think of so many other things. One small example is, I know a lot of people go get their HRT injections from their doctor at the doctor's office. They don't administer them themselves. And so it's the same situation, a similar situation to what you were just talking about of, those people then, if they even have the choice to be able to go risk their health and go on public transportation and go there, that's still, you have to risk your other parts of your health in order to fulfill this one part of your health. But also, thinking, we're talking about the everyday healthcare issues that we all already face, but this is a global health pandemic, and trans people are not immune to getting COVID-19. And that's why this the Trans Equality NCTE resource that AJ shared is so good, because it does walk you through if you have symptoms, if you think that you need to go to urgent care. It's I've read all these resources, but it just hit me yesterday, thinking about myself in it for the first time, where I was like, shoot, I have been scared for years of having to go to the ER because of how I might be treated if I have to go to the ER, because I am super privileged and only ever go to a LGBT health clinic where all of my medical providers are trained and know everything and use the right pronouns and are familiar with all kinds of bodies.
Yeah.
And I'm if I go to the ER, there's just so many questions. I don't even know where to begin. And it's I might be fighting for my life while being actively misgendered. And it's just so scary and wild to think about. And I don't necessarily mean to put that fear on the trans people in here, but it is one thing that I want any of the cis people who are here to just be aware of. These are some of the things, that unique ways that we're affected right now, and some of the big fears that we have, and I guess some of the things to be aware of, so how you can be of good support to us and be there for us.
I also just want to point out, I was going to say, this nice shared experience in the comments and on here of I need my ADD medicine, but I don't want to pick it up in this. I don't know. It feels very, very trans right now, because I definitely just don't want to call my doctor in order, because I know I need an appointment, and I don't know if they're doing appointments in order to get the refill. Yeah. So I've just not done it. Because I'm that's so far down my list of things I have to do right now. But also, is it really so far down the list? Who's to say? And it's
it isn't just when you're going into the ER that you run into those kinds of things. I'm super privileged in that I also go to an LGBT friendly health clinic. Not only that, but one of my close friends is the director of trans health there. So like super, if I ever have any problems, I'm fine. But then the minute that I had to transfer my prescription to a CVS, it was like I put it off for so long that I was in Ohio before I started actually dealing with it, because I went to school in New England. And that, that causes so many barriers. Now imagine how, like, and then you're in acute distress and you have to deal with that. Or you were supposed to be going to have your top surgery or some other, like big health things aren't even just coronavirus. All the other big health things are still happening. I've already heard of like several people who like that I either know personally or like are in my network who had their surgeries canceled or who had to delay going on hormones and stuff like that. And it's just, it comes from all sides.
Yeah, it's super crushing. I know so many people who've experienced that as well. And it's like, especially, I know a couple of people who are younger, like in college, and I just so feel for like college students who like went away to college, like found a community, and were like just starting to make moves on like this side of transition that they wanted to do. And now that got canceled and they're stuck back at home. And I just like, oh my gosh. And there's so many people in that situation. And I just super feel for them. So if you are one of those people, or if you know someone in that situation, like please share some of these resources that we've shared. We've got a few more as well that we'll put in the links as we go on. But yeah, I just can't get those people out of my head.
I know many of them as a college student. I may be privileged, but a lot of my friends aren't. Sorry if you can hear my grandfather out in the hall.
That's great.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's the whole point of everything that we want to talk about here is just how can we support each other? How can we find these resources and share them with each other? Because, as we discussed, they're impossible to find on the internet because they just don't exist. According to a lot of healthcare professionals and a lot of just people in the world, trans people don't exist. But I think, look here's the four of us existing. Here's the entire comment section existing. Here's like a wild amount of the HPA existing. We are out here. And I think it's really important that we kind of think about what each other are going through and just make any kind of community for ourselves right now. Because, like you said, Jack, people are getting sent back home to places where they can't be themselves anymore. They can't dress in a way that makes them feel comfortable. They can't use a name or pronouns that are accurate for their gender and what makes them happy. And it's just devastating for people. So it's rough. It's really rough. And then something does happen. Maybe these people do get sick or anything else happens and they end up in the hospital. And like you said, they're being misgendered constantly. And it's not necessarily out of, an attempt. Yeah, it's not out of malice. It's just out of a lack of education. And people don't know how to react around trans people. And so just kind of.
Or for like actual younger people who are
yes,
underage.
I saw that comment.
You have the added barrier of then these kids, like, what about, yes, you're being misgendered. Maybe it's not because these people are not educated or because of malice. Maybe it's because the parents are actively like speaking over them. It's so tough to be in a space like this where you can't assert yourself because, like, legally speaking, you have no voice. And now you're shut in these spaces constantly where, someone in the comments asked if we could all share our pronouns again. I use they, them.
I am also a they, them pronoun user.
You're a they, them.
I'm a they and she pronoun user.
And I'm the lone he, him. Yeah, next time we should do what AJ did. AJ was real smart there, putting their pronouns.
Yeah,
right in
that
there.
was smart.
I was like, "Ooh, I'm doing an emoji. I'm so cool." Didn't think about responsibility.
I saw AJ's and then I didn't know how to change mine, so we couldn't all be cool.
Same.
On the note though of, people, whether you're in high school, if you're in college, whatever your situation is, if you're stuck
Middle
in an
school.
middle school, yeah, wow. I I'm having okay, so I turned 30 in a month, and so I'm having a lot of age things that I'm working through right now, and I just have to say that, like, I was doing trivia with my friends the other night, and there was a science question, and I was like, "Oh, I haven't taken a science class since," and I realized it's been more than half my life since I took a science class. That's how old I am now.
Yeah, you are old.
Which is not that old, but in this community, it always feels ancient. But no, on the note of people stuck in unsupportive homes, I found an article earlier today from Them, which, if you're not familiar, it's Them, all lowercase period. It's a media outlet that does a lot of great articles, and videos. And they put out a video that, if someone else can link for me, because my computer does not like me opening other tabs right now, and also I can't write in the chat for some reason. But anyways, it's got thank you so much. It's got some good strategies and tips for if you are stuck in a household that's unaccepting, or like we were saying earlier in the broadcast, of just, even if that's not exactly your situation, like, we're all going through really hard times in so many different ways. And so I think there's a lot of good tips in there for no matter what your situation might be right now.
I think also it's important, and also for me anyway, like, cool to think about. We talked about it a little bit in the zine workshop earlier. Like, zines kind of, work like the HPA or online communities work, and they're very queer and very trans, and like trans people have always like advocated for each other and found spaces to like share stories and experiences, and like we're like really lucky to be like a part of this continued community where like things like this happen, and even articles that share different resources. Like, we understand, like, it's up to us to like go on Reddit and figure out what is like something good to share with like our community, because we know it's not going to be done by the top of the hierarchy. And as much as it sucks, it's nice to know that like the shared experience is like important and like very like powerful, because like it's not just you, or it's not just the people on the live stream. It's like we're literally everywhere.
No, I love that, Ames, because I think times like this is when people need to come together and work together in those ways, and being a part of the LGBTQ plus community. Like, we got that. That's what we do. Like, we're used to doing the work when other people won't do it. We're used to fighting up and making sure that the people in our community are supported in the ways that they need to be. We're so good at mutual aid. And so I'm feeling similar feelings of gratitude for being a part of the LGBTQ plus community, because I feel like, as hard as this is, it's like, I've been through a lot, I've done a lot already. This community's been through a lot, and I really believe in us, and I believe in our resiliency. And yeah, that's a good point, Ames. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I
keeping it positive here.
I love
in the time of the virus.
I think that's so important, honestly, just to keep kind of everything going. I've been kind of reading through the comments a little bit, and people are sharing stories about like sticking up for each other and sticking up for trans people that they know. And it's really, I think, so important to do that, and just to be here for one another. And I think that's just absolutely fantastic that people are doing that. I think it's rough that they have to do it. But I think it's good that they are.
One question that I saw that I want to flip to you, Ray, as the one with professional healthcare experience, is I saw a question about tips for advocating for yourself or others, particularly in medical spaces. If you have any insight.
Okay, so here's the deal. In general, speaking up for yourself is going to be just extremely important. It's unfortunate that you, as a trans person, have to be the person that educates your healthcare provider about your healthcare needs. And for everyone that has to do that, I'm tremendously sorry that you go through that. Telling you, one nursing student at a time, I'm going to fix it. But be your own advocate if it's safe for you to do so. It's not always going to be safe, especially for those people who are younger or dependent on others for whatever reason. It might not be safe for you to do it, but if you can be your own advocate, explain to your healthcare provider what you need. Tell them, that it's absolutely unacceptable if they call you the wrong gender, if they use the wrong pronouns for you. Again, if it feels safe. And then know that you can ask them to leave. I think people don't know that all the time, but you very much can ask them to leave if you don't feel safe with that healthcare provider, if they're not acknowledging who you are, or if they're disrespecting you repeatedly. Kick them out, fire them. Ask for their boss.
The other thing that, again, only if you feel comfortable doing this, and if your people are like, if someone in their organization is willing to listen, you don't have to do all of the teaching on your own. There are small organizations that are like, that have resources out there. And also, like, again, falling back on Fenway Health, because that's all I do ever. They have like, I know my friend is all like constantly doing these like national trainings. They have materials available specifically for healthcare providers, specifically in terms of trans competency. And if you can send them in the, like, get them to go do their own freaking homework, that stuff can be out there. Again, it's really hard to find, and so many of these folks might not know about it, but it doesn't have to, like, if you can be your own advocate and if you feel you have the energy to do that, then that, like, obviously that will be more immediate. But if you feel like you can't do it by yourself, there are folks out there, like trans advocacy organizations, that if you find them, that they will be more than happy to help you.
Yeah.
I think also, I mean, just for me on that, like, I live in Indiana, like I said, I feel like you can tell how I feel about that. But I know, I mean, for people, like, we finally got our Planned Parenthood back in our city. It's very exciting. We didn't have one for years. I don't know if they're doing hormones yet, but I know for the past few years, most people, like, you have to go out of town. You have to, like, drive in order to find a doctor that's trans affirming. And, like, the only place to, like, check is, like, you've got a million Facebook groups. So, like, find local Facebook groups and see what, local trans people are saying, like, somewhere where, like, we don't, in Fort Wayne, Indiana, shout out to my hometown where I live, there's, like, no, like, trans medical provider, or even, like, a LGBTQ one. It's just you figure out if your doctor, is trans affirming or not. And for me, the way to even look up anything has just been asking other people in trans Facebook groups. And that might be the best way to go for things like this too. If you're worried about, I mean, maybe not being a victim, a person with COVID-19, but, like, other things, trying to find a doctor, even just like a general practitioner who might not be too far away. I don't know how far away it is to everyone else. Indiana, everything seems either really close or really far. So Midwest.
Well, a good thing about that right now, and we'll see what sort of things keep up after this, but I know a lot of LGBT centers have moved as many of their services online as they can. So while in the past I've always been so hesitant to recommend the great resources of LGBT centers for exactly that reason, Ames, because so many people live inaccessibly far from them. Now you could, if there's only one in your state and it's in, like, the capital that you live a 4-hour drive from, right now maybe you can use some of their services because they're all virtual and they're online. So it's definitely worth checking, even if you've written it off before. Maybe go check out their website and see if they're able to do anything right now, because AJ is totally right. A lot of them have just way more resources than you would ever imagine on things you wouldn't even expect. Like when I was re-enrolling for healthcare this year with the Affordable Care Act kind of marketplace healthcare, and I've always had, like, a slight issue with it, and I noticed that my LGBT center was doing appointments with navigators, they're called, who would sit down with you and re-enroll with you so that they could, like, give you advice. And they caught this one thing that I never would have caught myself, I was like, wow, I'm so glad that I came here, and so glad that this service exists that I never would have expected. So definitely look out there. And yeah, the Facebook groups, if you can find them, have saved me more than one time. Just getting the insight from like actual people, because there is a lot that has not been researched or documented about us yet. And all the resources are so hard to find, but there's a lot of people looking for them and a lot of people willing to share their knowledge.
Yeah, I want to kind of piggyback on that, and I want to backtrack a little bit to something that AJ was talking about, just in regards to if you feel up to it, getting some of this education for the healthcare providers that you're working with. Keep in mind that it's not your responsibility. And I know we all know that, but I think sometimes it's really important just to highlight that and really just emphasize, that's not your job. It's your healthcare provider's job, and they're failing you. They're literally failing you. They're not doing their job at all. If you feel comfortable with it, call them on that and tell them you need to do better for this community and all of the other communities that you serve. And then if you feel up to it, you might point them gently in the direction of maybe some of these resources. Just send them like a general Google search, honestly, because don't waste your energy on them. If they're not taking the time to find the education, they're probably not going to take it to heart either. I can say that just from working with various people in the healthcare industry. I also I want to kind of pause the conversation just to touch on the chat over here. We have a lot of really good conversation going, and a handful of questions that I don't think the stream is really going to be a great place to give justice to. There's some things that I think people might need a little bit more detail before kind of chatting over together. So I just wanted to, take a second to kind of plug in the various Discord channels that exist again. The HPA is just launching a trans-friendly, help each other out kind of chat about your stuff Discord. And then, as AJ mentioned, the Camp Lilac Discord is the perfect place to also go and talk about this. So there's a couple options for people.
And also come look at trans memes. We have those too.
And also trans memes, because those are always fun.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's my biggest tip for today. If you're struggling right now, find you some good trans memes. They'll make you feel a little less alone. But yeah, I think that's good. I think we should maybe transition, and yes, pun intended, just into kind of, let's talk about just, I want to get more into that silver lining kind of thing. What's the best stuff about being trans, honestly? I want to kind of leave us on a high note before we wind down today, and just, let's all feel good about things. Let's feel good about ourselves. Does anybody have anything they want to throw in about that?
The fashion, the clothes, everyone is just cuter.
I missed that memo.
You have a great shirt on right now, Jack.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I should. This is my patron Anna gave me this. Pizza rolls, not gender role. I wanted to wear the shirt that Ray's wearing, which is a great HPA shirt, but I already wore it this week, so it's dirty.
I almost wore it too.
I kind of wondered when I put this shirt on today how many people in this particular live stream were going to show up in this shirt.
I wanted to.
I made a last-minute decision to change.
That y'all didn't.
I was wearing.
But anyway, I'm sorry, I interrupted you, Ames.
No, I'm good. Fashion and clothes. That's my first thing, I guess.
I really enjoy the built-in, not exactly built-in. I keep touching my face. I'm not supposed to touch my face anymore. I keep thinking about how all of these people, all three of you and all of the people that I know in the chat, I wouldn't know any of you. I would not feel close with any of you if I wasn't trans. Some of my closest friends I only know because I'm trans, and we automatically have something in common with each other when we sit down. And even if we aren't people who want to spend all of our time together talking about how we're trans. It's just like you automatically know on this one level you have this thing. Like I'm Jewish and I have the same feeling when I meet other Jewish people, even if we have nothing else in common. It's like, well, I know that there's a person here that understands some facet of my being. And that's
it's the feeling that like, oh, go ahead, keep going.
Oh, I was just saying that's, you know, a lot deeper than fashion, but that's where my brain went.
It's like where you don't have to do any explainers, you know.
Mhm.
You know, you're like starting off on the same foot. Yeah, I love that.
Like how I put they, them in my name for this, and instead of feeling out of place, it's like everyone else was, oh, I should have done that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The community that comes along with being a part of this is just, it's absolutely inspiring, and it's one of the best things ever. I have a little bit of a silver lining that has come along very specifically for me with being stuck at home so much. I won't say with the pandemic that's happening, because, you know, that's just not great. But with just being at home all the time, one of the silver linings, let me just tell you, sweatpants. As somebody who has a lot of feelings about their hips, I gotta say, sweatpants and just being able to wear them every day, it's been a gift.
Mhm.
So there's a silver lining for you all.
Yeah, similarly, I've been trying to grow out this mustache, which you can barely see on this 360 pixelated screen.
You got a
But
compliment on it in the chat.
Yeah, no, it looks good. Yeah, there
oh,
was a
well, thank
compliment in
you.
the chat.
It doesn't look great in person. It's like just in the past couple of days, it almost got to the point where I wouldn't be completely embarrassed out in public. But like, yeah, when else would I have this long period of time where like I don't have to go in public and be judged for my pathetic facial hair? So it's been a great time to grow it out and see
Yeah.
how it does. I've never had this chance to grow it this long. And it is long enough that I think I actually need to trim it soon because it's getting stuck in my mouth. New experiences.
Look at all that's come out of this pandemic. Think of all the things you're learning about yourself now. Yeah, we're all learning so much.
Yeah, I do keep thinking about, you know, like how is this, I mean, how's it going to change the world, of course, but like how am I going to change? What realizations have I had that I can learn and take from this? And, you know, what positive change do I want to enact on the other side of this? And I think that's I don't know, that's one of the things that kind of keeps me going sometimes. What?
Okay, no, I wasn't laughing at that. I'm so sorry. So there's a comment in the chat
Oh,
from that girl Lee, new Instagram handle, pathetic facial hair. And so you know, I'm just saying, it's a good rec. Yeah, but going back to your very serious thing that you were just talking about that I laughed during, I'm so sorry.
God, I'm so offended.
I know, I'm awful. I've kind of been thinking along the same lines of that, and my takeaway from this whole thing is very specific to where my interests lie, which is just that we need to fight harder for better healthcare and better access.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I don't know if I would have had the same push without this happening. So I consider that to be a silver lining for sure. Just personally.
And I think another silver lining about the silver lining of like being trans, like what's great about being trans is kind of going back again to some of what Ames was saying of, you know, I feel like we have fought so hard already. So I sort of keep reminding myself like I've been through so much, like I can do this. I can do this because I've weathered so much already. Eddie Izzard in his oh, here it is. Hold on. In his great autobiography or memoir, Eddie Izzard, Believe Me, a memoir of love, death, and jazz chickens, took the subtitle before I could get to it. Anyways, he so if you don't know, he's a transgender comedian, and he came out in the early 90s, and he runs marathons. He'll run like 50 marathons in 50 days for charity. It's ridiculous. And he talks about one of the reasons he's able to do it is because he's like, when you've gone through everything you have to go through coming out as trans, running 50 marathons in 50 days feels like nothing. And I don't know that I personally agree with it to that extent, but I think about that a lot of just like, you know what? I've done some stuff already. I've been through some stuff. And so I can do this, whatever this is.
And we have our communities, like all of these discords that are popping up now, we have these spaces that we can fall back on that, like, if we were living 30 years ago through this, we wouldn't have, you know, like, here we are. And we've done it worse before. I'm sorry, I'm stumbling over my words. Like, we've had so much worse in our lives before, and also we don't have to go it alone, because not all of our friends, but many of our friends have too.
Yeah.
And we still have each other because we have the internet.
Yeah, I saw a headline that I chose not to read recently, which is a great self-care, I suggest, is not reading news sometimes. But it was an article that was like, what if this had happened 20 years ago? I mean, like the social mental health side of not being able to connect in this way, but also the job way. Like, no one could telework back then,
Right.
not to the scale that we can now. I mean, so many people still can't. But oh my gosh, I'm talking about gratitude. I'm so grateful that we have this technology, that we are able to reach out to people and have spaces like this, and we can still stay connected. There's a great social entrepreneur, thought leader, Susan McPherson, who's been saying in a lot of articles and videos recently that she doesn't like social distancing as a phrase. She prefers remote connecting. And I like that. We're remote connecting. We're not social distancing.
See, I thought of it as social distancing because we're being social while we're distancing, but I like remote connecting
Oh,
better.
well, that's a cool way to turn it on its head as well. I like that.
Yeah, I really like that. That's lovely. I'm going to have to start changing the way I talk about this situation we find ourselves in.
I just want to reiterate something Ray was saying earlier, which is that I know we got a handful of questions in the chat that we didn't get to, and talking about how hard, you know, being trans is, and figuring out how to come out and stuff. It is very hard and very heavy topics and difficult to figure out on your own. And I don't think we can really do justice to any of that right now, in part because we're not necessarily experts. But I would definitely direct you to some of the resources that we shared in the chat, and also mentioned the Trevor Project being a great one. And what is the other one I was just thinking of? GLSEN, GLSEN, is specifically for students. And so if you go to their websites and their social media, they'll probably have a lot of good articles and tips on coming out and talking to your parents and all kinds of great resources like that.
Yeah, I definitely. A lot of those organizations. Speaking of, we had a request to go back for a question. Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna tackle this question from Beverly really quick, and then we'll kind of wrap things up. How, besides using the correct pronouns, how can this person make their practice more safe for trans people? And this is applicable to any service industry, any healthcare, any whatever. Learn. And that's, I know that's a really simple answer, but just learn, seek out education. There, for healthcare in particular, there are documents that exist on the internet. I wish I had one pulled up to link you to right now, but they're not too hard to find. If you go to some of those organizations that Jack just listed, some of them will link you to guidelines for healthcare providers, or people in the service industry to educate themselves and to start making their practice a little bit more trans inclusive, or just queer and inclusive just in general. You can reach out to any local LGBTQ centers that might be in your area, talk to them, see if they have any kind of education programs. Most of them do. And they, a lot of times, will either send you resources that are pertinent to your area and the type of folks that your area has a lot of, or they might even send somebody to your organization for you to do some live education. If you have any, organization, like if your organization in particular is really trying to get somebody to come and educate yourself and the people that work in your company, you can always talk to your leadership teams or wherever you work and see if you can pay to bring in a trans spokesperson to do some education. I know that potentially someone in this particular live stream might do some of that work. They can speak up about that if they want to. And just to reiterate, just learn. Don't rely on your trans patients to do the education for you. Seek it out before they ever come to you.
Also listen actively and believe people, like especially marginalized people. Often their biggest problem is that they aren't believed, and it's a fight to be believed. So listen with an open mind and think critically about the whole situation. Like think about it, not just your like face value, what you're hearing. Listen critically. And also I want to highlight what Azrael said about never out trans people to anyone. Don't just ask for pronouns and when to use which pronouns. What I like to say is please share your pronouns if you're comfortable, or some variation, so that people have a way to like, so they like make it an option so that you aren't putting anybody on the spot, so you aren't forcing anybody to be outed. I've had too many, working in a trans industry, working in like the trans corner of the world, I've had too many well-meaning cis people out me in spaces that I would have been comfortable eventually getting to, but like it's, you know, it's so difficult to navigate that kind of space on your own, let alone when people are putting that, like pushing that on you. So yeah, don't just ask, make it an option, but make sure to make it an option.
Yeah, and I would also add, you know, Beverly, if you're here watching this and you're asking, then it sounds like you know a little bit more than the average person about trans people, and sounds like you're trying to make a difference in your workplace. But probably not all of your coworkers are in the same boat. So I would say the best thing you can do is educate your other coworkers, kind of like Ray was saying, to the extent that you can push to have different trainings implemented and put in place in your workplace. That's what will really help, because what I see a lot of times at schools and at companies is like top down, they might have put in place some formal policies, often just so they can get brownie points as a company. But what they haven't done is trained any of the employees on what that means and how to actually interact with trans people. So it really doesn't matter if a company says, like, we provide XYZ, if the day-to-day staff aren't actually educated on what that means and how to interact with trans people. And one thing I would say, since we've all just said resources, I forgot that I put together a handy page on my website for exactly this reason. So if you go to jacksonbird.cool/resources, I've collected a number of resources there for all sorts of different things, and they lead to most of the websites that we've mentioned. So you can go to those websites and then search for the particular topic that you're looking for.
I just really adore that it's .cool.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah, honestly, like, good work finding that. That's real good. I'm going to drop that into the chat actually right now, so it's easy for people to find. Maybe my thing is spinning, so it may or may not end up in the chat.
There it went.
There it is.
Good. Also, hello. I am the HP Alliance. The whole alliance. I have all of the power right now with the comments.
I'm actually, I assumed that was another volunteer or staffer helping out there. That's been you the whole time?
It's been me the whole time.
That's great multitasking.
Thank you.
Wow.
I'm impressed with your bandwidth as well.
Yeah, I'm very impressed by that. I really thought it was going to go out at some point. The last kind of thing that I'll just kind of piggyback on and say is just also, if you're wondering how you can improve your interactions with trans people, if you are a cis person, or even if you are another trans person, be prepared to reflect on your own opinions. Be prepared to have to dismantle some of the things that you believe and rebuild them, because that's a big part of the education that you need to be doing, is just kind of rewiring your brain. And it's something that we're all doing. It's something that I work actively to do literally every day, because you're going to make mistakes, but be prepared to kind of reevaluate those and ask yourself where that's coming from, where you learned that, and what you can do to change it. And that's a big part of it.
And remember that no matter who you are, you're not immune to those mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So good. So well said.
Okay. I think I think we're gonna probably wrap things up. It's been really nice chatting.
It's been nice.
I'm gonna drop the Discord link one last time. Oh nope, that's Jack's website again. Just kidding.
Plug my website again. That's cool.
Hey, I'm doing what I can.
No, please plug the Discord, because that's something that is even more helpful to people who are looking for community or looking for very specific advice to them as a person if they want to talk to other people and see what other people have to say.
Okay.
Wait, can I drop the camp links?
Drop it away. Yeah.
Drop those links.
The more communities we can bring out, the better. If you were in the comments and had some specific questions that we didn't get to talk about, please go over to the Discord, and we'll have some conversations there. We're going to start building a really good community in there that can help each other out with some of those more personal questions. So I think that would be a good place. AJ,
I guess I'm also the HPA.
Are you? Or can you comment in there? Perfect.
Yeah. So I just put the camp Discord. That's like the second one. The first one was the HPA Discord, and just real quick, bit.ly/2020, and I don't remember what the HPA's fundraiser link is.
Yeah, if you are in a position to be able to donate and support communities that way, definitely check out Camp Lilac's fundraiser and also the HPA's fundraiser.
The other thing, sorry.
No, go for it.
The other thing is
I can't speak to it too much.
I'm sorry. Both fundraisers.
No, like I literally don't know what more to say about the fundraisers. So
that's fair.
Please
both fundraisers are on Give Lively, which means that even if you cannot yourself donate, I know that you can create your own fundraiser and send it to your communities who can. Like, that's what we've been pushing, is to get folks, because I know a lot of young trans folks especially can't donate, but you can make your own fundraiser. And I know for the HPA, camp doesn't have anything this fancy yet, but for the HPA, if you fundraise a certain amount, you get some cool prizes and stuff. So
nice.
I promised myself that I was going to mention the HPA fundraiser like 5 times in this live stream, and 100% forgot. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Both for bringing that up. AJ, my good friend, or Ames, my good friend, do you know what the how do I link people to the fundraiser? I don't know what the URL is.
I don't know what the short one is.
What's the quick little simple one?
What is the quick Granger 2020?
No, Granger2020.org takes you to the Granger 2020 campaign page. Sorry, we clearly all know what we're doing.
Oh, Janae's in the chat. Janae, you should
Janae, help us, rescue us.
Listen, I hear it's in this video description.
Yes, ha.
Oh, in the video description.
I don't know.
Look at us having this great, awesome, big supportive team in the comments for us.
You know, honestly, this is the perfect bow on the top of this live stream. Count on each other. Lean on each other.
Exactly.
It's teamwork. This is how we're going to get through the pandemic. This is how we're going to get through life in general.
Yeah, know when you need help, and know who you can ask for it.
We're all in this together.
Yeah, well, apparently Janae can't put links in the description. So
I work here.
I'm going in the back way. We're getting the link.
Yeah, go in the video description. It's all good. Get it there, or go to Granger 2020 and click a couple of buttons.
I have a link. Katie sent me a link. Hang on.
Oh, thank goodness.
Thank you, Katie.
We're professional adults. Hello.
Yeah, between us, how many degrees do we have? A few.
I don't have one yet. I get
you
mine
basically do.
I only have the one.
Listen, I'm a firm believer that degrees don't actually mean very much. So
that's true.
Because you have so many, don't you?
I have
I bet.
It's like people with a lot of money being like, "Oh, money doesn't matter."
No, okay, look, I have 2. It's true. I have some regrets about the second one, but
I have a high school diploma. Does that count?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay, then I have more than one now.
Look, we're not degree exclusionists here.
No.
Absolutely not.
I have an inferiority complex, but honestly, I agree with Ray that degrees don't matter.
Yeah.
I've been instructed to say the link out loud. I forgot that part because apparently I can only type and think at the same time, and not also talk, but it is bit.ly/support Grainger2020, no caps.
No
Well done.
caps.
Beautiful. It's in the
No
chat.
caps.
We said it aloud.
Yeah. Okay. Well, with that beautiful ending to this live stream, please go visit the Discord. Please go visit the bit.ly/support Grainger2020 if you're able to. It helps us to keep doing things like this. It helps us to keep small things running. Or who knows what else is coming in the world. And I want to thank all three of the people on this stream with me for joining, and also for just being great people.
Aw, thank you.
You too.
Thank
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, thanks for facilitating this, Ray. This has been great.
It has been great.
Facilitated.
Oh, you facilitated and you ran the chat. Please.
So impressive.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks.
And Ray, you're
I
doing
love
so much to make all the rest of Small Things Con happen too. You're awesome.
Oh,
You are awesome.
You might say that Ray's doing all the small things.
I think that we need to be done.
thank you for doing that, because I was getting really uncomfortable.
But happy Trans Day of Visibility, everyone.
Yes, be
Yeah.
visible if you're able. Be visible to yourself if you're able. And
Just look at yourself in the mirror and smile.
yeah, be good to yourself.
Yes.
Please be good to yourself. We're here with you. And on that, I'm ending it.
Cool.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Good night.